First order of business is public comment. So I see there's some folks in the room. If anybody wants to step up to the mic or sit up to the mic for public comment, we welcome it. We will also take public comment online, but we'll start with the room. And I'm going to try and do Jim's spiel justice because I do agree with it that we understand that public comment can sometimes be a little intimidating. I am definitely.
My fault. Sorry. Go ahead.
Wait,
we're good
now. Okay.
We're good.
Definitely one of those people who is a nervous public speaker. So I absolutely empathize if you're feeling some nerves and that it can be hard to do. So take your time. And we will also, it's a board practice to not respond during public comment. Just to take in the information and use it. If it's about something we're deliberating tonight, we will use it in that deliberation. But if it's about something that's not on the agenda, we save it for another day. So with that, and also please state your name and where you live for the record.
And I live on Terrace Street in Montpelier. And my public comment relates to, I think I've spoken to almost all of you about this, but phone-free schools and social media-free schools. But I first learned about it really about 6 or 7 weeks ago. And since learning about this initiative that's happening at the state level, I really wanted to see what Montpelier was doing. And so I've been doing a lot of just meeting and talking with parents and teachers, because I am not a teacher. I'm not in the schools. So I wanted to see what was happening inside the schools. And I've spoken to a few teachers at Stowe, both at the middle school, at the elementary school, that are Montpelier residents, but they teach in Stowe at Lamoille Supervisory Union. And then also some teachers at Harwood Union. And I have heard nothing but positive feedback. So what I'm really interested in, and I'm trying to find a person that can tell me maybe some problems of having a phone-free school. So I encourage everybody to reach out to your fellow teachers. I think it's a really good thing, especially at the high school level, which it's already, Jason is here and doing a fantastic job already tackling that. But our middle school, I think it's important to have a unified front, even though the elementary school, it's really not a huge issue. I walk kids to school in the morning and I have my little second grade buddy, Rowan, and I just asked her, do any of your buddies have smartwatches? And she said, yeah, I have a friend who does, and she keeps it in her desk. And she knows to turn the noise off because she got caught once. And so I was like, oh, it happens at all levels. So I know. It was her buddy, and an unnamed buddy. Yeah, and I won't say Rowan's last name. We can figure it out. But so I just think it's something that what I have heard most is that it's a gift for our kids, but the teachers that have implemented these policies across the boards, they've said, I can't believe we didn't have this before and we don't want to go back. So I think it was really powerful, compelling stuff that I'm hearing just from the people who have already done it. So that was my public comment. I hope we can look into it, and maybe not only at the high school, but at the middle school and elementary school to have a unified front.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
Aditha has her hand up online.
Okay, great. So we'll go online.
And I'm sorry, Liza does. Sorry.
For a couple more. Looks like Liza, you're up first.
Okay, thanks so much. Sorry, I don't know how to put my camera on, but I saw on your agenda today that there was an item called legislative priorities, and I really just wanted to speak briefly to what Sarah was talking about. There's like so much amazing success happening at the schools that have gone to a really phone-free, stored away for the day policy. And we just want to get, we want to get all the schools in Vermont having that success and all the teachers experiencing a renewed joy of teaching as soon as possible. And there's a great bill in the state legislature, the phone-free and social media free school bill, H54. And I would really strongly recommend like channeling this moment. And if you guys could make that a priority, because in the education committee, they're saying, oh, the school boards should decide this. They don't want us telling them what to do. But what we're hearing from Jason, who's put in so much time this year, is wow, it really would have made his work a lot easier if it was a piece of legislation, and it would really have your backs and all the school board members' backs around the state to help put this best practice into place. It's really clear there's a parental anxiety issue that does need to get addressed, but those parents are definitely in the minority. All of us are finding, and we can hold their hands and really help them through that transition. And some students, but there's no data on the other side of better performance for schools. It's hands down. Teens are less anxious. They're focused in school better, and just better social communities. And so I hope that this might be a legislative priority for your school board.
Thank you, Liza. And then Adisa did. Oh, Adisa keeps lowering her hand. Adisa, would you like to join the public comment?
Yes, I do. I just didn't know if
Good.
I had to keep my hand up all the time. I was getting tired.
You're a go for your public comment.
Okay, well, basically, I just wanted to thank you all for your hard work. And like Liza was saying, I really appreciate if you would add this to your legislative priorities, because we're hoping to make a bill passed, and as well as having it be a school district policy. Sorry, I have a cold. School district policy. As a mother of a 10-year-old who's already getting very pumped about texting his friends, and a 16-year-old who does not imagine life without a phone inside or outside of school, I really look forward to having a school-free, a phone-free, sorry, a phone-free schools policy, and hopefully bill as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adiza. That's it. Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone, for the public comment. Next up is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I move we approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Is there a second? Right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thanks. So now we're going to turn it over to the Flexible Pathways students and teacher for a brief presentation, right?
Good.
Excellent.
So as Matt's getting ready, I'm super excited for you all to see what Matt has to present and hear from these kids. They're awesome. And the opportunities that Matt and his team have been able to create for our students in Montpelier High School is second to none. I wanted to share this presentation with my own kids' school board, but I didn't. I refrained. But I did share it with my husband, who said, I wish I could tuition my kids there because of this. So I'm super excited to show this off to the public. So I will share my screen, Matthew, after I've embarrassed you.
Yeah, and thank you. My name is Matt McLean, and I really appreciate the invitation to connect tonight. And I really appreciate Cooper and Diego and Anna and Logan for creating some space to also share some of their experiences and reflections that have been experienced through some of their own flexible pathway experiences. So just want to appreciate the space that y'all have created and the experiences that you've had. And so thanks for making time to share those. I'm just going to share some information using some slides. I'm going to read a little bit because I'm not really super keen on public speaking. I'll riff a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to this crew behind me, and we'll just take it from there if that's okay. All right. The first slide, if you want to go back one, Libby, sorry. I just want to just spend a second here on the word curiosity. And it is a human experience to be curious, and it certainly is one that we want to foster in all of our students throughout the system, from elementary school until they graduate. And Gingold says, "Congrats, you're out of here," and the crowd goes nuts, which is going to happen for 2 of you this year. So curiosity is at the fore of lifelong learning, and so much of what Flexible Pathways and personalized education is centers around being curious and taking steps to learn about one's curiosities. Our world is tremendously big, complex, incredibly challenging, deeply beautiful, and in so many ways interconnected. And opportunities for exploration and learning are seemingly endless. Flexible Pathways are one important avenue in our community that our students can express curiosity and take intentional and supported steps to learn about something of interest, develop skills and dispositions, and make informed choices about their future. But just, again, centering on curiosity as a really critical element of a lifelong learner. Again, welcome and thank you. Totally appreciate it. Y'all are going to hear some reflections from Cooper, Anna, Logan, and Diego. The next slide is this is obviously our district's vision statement, and again, just working in promotion and alignment, Flexible Pathways, and the opportunities that students are encouraged and supported to experience have an opportunity to help actualize aspects of this. And it is true that knowing how to be a citizen and an engaged learner does not spontaneously happen. And it is one that, as a school system, that we have an obligation and a responsibility to promote and to support. And that is a responsibility that we as a school community take very seriously. And a lot of what the Flexible Pathway opportunities do certainly help to promote what our vision is for our students when they graduate and throughout their experiences along the way. The next slide is just, so this is a short menu of some of the different pathways. I'm not going to go into each one, but you'll hear from Anna and Logan and Cooper and Diego. They'll use terms like PLS and CL and PL and CBL. And so community-based learning, these are kind of mini internships, for lack of a better word. There were students experience learning in partnership with a community partner. Personalized learning studies are typically experienced where individual students work with a faculty advisor designing a topic of study, and then journeying forward during the semester, creating experiences that are really targeted toward that personalized and custom topic of interest. Online learning, we're currently partnering with VTVLC and BYU. We've also partnered with Virtual High School in the past, and another online partner called Edmentum. And so that's another one of our flexible both platforms and environments for learning. Dual enrollment in early college, those are Agency of Education promoted higher education opportunities that all students in Vermont are afforded, as well as Montpelier High School students. And those are opportunities for students to dip their toes in either a class or more immersively, as Logan will describe, in a full year of early college as a senior. Central Vermont Career Center, all of you are familiar with that. And we certainly have a cohort of students each year that experience that learning environment. And then I'll share a little bit about a couple of new pathways with FEAST, which is the City of Montpelier Meals on Wheels program, and Heaton Woods, which is a long-term care residence in our community, and creating opportunities for students to experience those partnerships while experiencing English language arts, global citizenship, and transferable skill education in those. ELOs and career labs, we're starting to offer more and more just opportunities for students to learn about careers, inviting professionals in. We recognize that's coming in through the door. 9th and 10th graders have fewer opportunities because some of the constraints that are just in place based on either age or grade, where some of the other opportunities. Just trying to get young people thinking about without having any expectation that as a 14-year-old you're creating a career pathway, but really, again, kind of promoting this idea of being curious about something that you may not have ever even thought about or known about. And then this year we have an introduction, or starting last year, Introduction to College and Careers, which is a CCV class, non-dual enrollment, where students can, it's a scaffolded experience where students have an opportunity to build the skills necessary to then find success at the higher ed level. And so we've been teaching that last year and again this year here at the high school, just create greater access. It used to be just an online opportunity for our students, and that was not an ideal platform for all students. And so we brought it in-house and have partnered with VSAC and a Gear Up grant to pay for that instructor here. And then we have a partnership with Central Vermont Adult Education for students who the high school pathway is not really as traditional and they want to experience something different. So that's kind of the menu of the different pathways. Okay. This is student participation over the last 3 years. These are individual student experiences, 2000. And so that means that this doesn't necessarily represent 303 students in 2021-22. This represents 303 experiences some students may have done, and many do, have a 1, 2, sometimes 3 experiences as part of their learning year. So you can see that our numbers are certainly they're growing each year as we add in different pathways and we seek to innovate in new ways by listening to our students' needs and our community's needs. We're really trying to be responsive to that and think about how can we add in pathways that make sense. And so those numbers just represent how many just individual student experiences we're having over the past 3 years. 53% of students in 2023-24 had at least one. So that's 201 students. And that number is pretty similar for the previous 2 years. I think it's like 51% and 50%. So pretty much just half to a little over half of our students are engaged in that menu in any given year. And feeling really grateful to have the ability to welcome students into those pathways. 86% of last year's graduating class took part in at least one of our flexible pathway options and opportunities, and many engaged in multiple. But this represents that 86% of the last year's graduating class had at least one experience within the department. By offering a larger menu, we have incredibly engaging courses and a wide breadth of courses here at the high school. And that's a really awesome thing. And students who are engaged in classes here have incredible opportunities. And we also know that because our world is big, student interests are unique, their aspirations are unique. We want to create as much breadth of opportunity for them to experience. So it really blows wide open the course catalogs when we start thinking about the higher education course catalogs each semester, online learning, the Central Vermont Career Center, which offers a wide breadth of not only fast forward dual enrollment, but also just immersive, interconnected learning experiences. And these are just a few topics. There's hundreds of different topics that students are engaged in a variety, and these are just kind of like umbrella topics that they might be engaged in. Each year we send out a thanks to our community partners in the Bridge, in the Times-Argus. We've done it in VT Digger. This is the core of so much of what makes this work. Not every experience has a community partnership that's involved with it, and many do. And obviously you can't read it. It's kind of a little bit small. but it's more of a visual to just kind of say like we've got people leaning into our school and our community and our students and saying, yes, I have something to offer and I want to share that experience with you, and I want you to share your experience with me or with us. This past year, we had 304 community partners who were involved in directly supporting our community pathways. Again, a tremendous amount of community support for these opportunities. In addition to kind of the menu, which stays mostly stable throughout the years, we also want to be an incubator for innovation. And again, kind of like listening to students and community needs. And these are just some of the different opportunities that have been created through different connections through the Flexible Pathways Department and faculty. I won't go into each one, but Face the Rivers class is a class that was started as a personalized learning study cohort with Vermont Rivers Conservancy and North Branch Nature Center, and has since grown and has been supported through private donations, which has allowed us to bring in community partners working in partnership with our educators to provide a robust and interconnected experience for our students, focusing on kind of holistic river ecology, civics, riparian zone, et cetera. Won't go into it. Student assistants those are students, Miriam being one who supports students in our world language department, specifically in French class. Thank you. We have 14 students working in 14 different classrooms, supporting their peers and working in partnership with teachers as a way to not only deepen their own understanding of the content, but also to support their peers in understanding the content along the way. So it's not an official part of our MTSS model, and yet it is naturally supporting and importantly supporting student learning experiences. And I won't go into the other ones, but we just the idea of just being an incubator for innovation and being able to receive and building capacity to receive opportunities, and then to systematically see how we can develop those. Just alumni testimony, there's, I think, linked in the board information. There's an alumni blog, and we have one of our distinguished alumnus here tonight who will share his own experiences. But students are sharing their experiences on this blog about kind of the through line of experience that they have as students, and then how that through line carries forward into their life past here. Fact, students will leave here. And so our responsibility to them and what they do is really important. And I know that is an affirmation of something that you all are obviously deeply committed to, and it is a fact. Students will leave here. And so how do we create through lines that will support them in their next steps in life? So that was one from Joseph. This is one from Julia Char Gilbert. Yeah, and again, you can see those on the website if you want to look at those. They're pretty cool. Access to opportunity, not only general access to opportunity, but equitable access to opportunity is an area that we are really thinking about intentionally about. All right, so we have all these wonderful and important pathways. Who are our students that are accessing them, and how are they accessing them, and how well are they doing in those experiences? And so that's an important piece. In the Vermont State Board of Education, the educational quality standards that have been adopted and that will be put into effect in July 1st. Flexible Pathways is a significant part of what schools are obligated to offer students and support as part of the 9 through 12 high school experience. And so that's kind of just, again, in Act 77 from 2013, the Flexible Pathways Initiative is kind of carrying forward this commitment to these types of experiences. The next two slides, I took two different areas. One is our percentage of BIPOC students who are accessing the pathways on the left. The the top number in red, just to kind of orient you to this table, is 2021-22, 11% of our entire population were BIPOC students, 11% 22-23, and 13% this past year. So that's kind of like just like the overall student population. And then as you look from left to right in each of the different pathways, that is the percentage of students who are enrolled in each of those pathways who were BIPOC. So for instance, last year, 14% of all students who were enrolled in community-based learning were BIPOC. And so we're looking at what our whole student population is in these areas, and then looking not only at all flexible pathways, but also more specifically at each pathway to kind of drill down a little bit more closely into where we may provide additional support for students to not only access, but to also find achievement in those pathways. So those numbers certainly represent kind of what we are seeing in terms of access for our BIPOC students. We know that this is an area both our BIPOC students and students who are on plans. It's an area of focus for our district. And it's an area of focus certainly for our Flexible Pathways department to really better understand and then create ways to support students in those experiences. Next slide, again, students on plans. This is a combination of both individual education plans and 504. So we do have it kind of separated out, but for this particular table, it's both. And again, you can kind of look from left to right, year to year, to see, in those particular pathways, how are students accessing those? And a couple of things, to note as we think about, like let's look at dual enrollment, for instance, as it goes from 17 to 15 to 10. So then, that obviously, creates questions for our team. Just say, why is that? And then we then engage in that conversation about what that looks like from the student experience, working with our school counseling team. And part of it also has to do with, some of the offerings that we have. But anyhow, but it creates important dialogue for us to have within our team and within our community. These two, I'm just going to share. Cooper will kind of riff a little bit on the feast experience. But these are two different pathways that have been developed over the past couple of years that are interdisciplinary. They typically are about 2 to 3 hours in length, a couple days a week, so a little bit more immersive. And they have connected curriculum, both in English language arts, global citizenship, and our LEs, learning expectations, transferable skills. And their opportunities were small cohorts of students in a learning community, as opposed to kind of like an individual experience. And knowing that students, the importance of student connection in the learning experience. So those are just two that we've innovated, and then Cooper will share a little bit about the feast experience. The three areas that we're going to continue to focus on in terms of promoting equity within our offerings is clarity, support, and then agency. We know that not all students arrive to their learning experience with agency, and we think about aspirational development, which is not kind of often a spoken about term in schools, but aspirational development is a critical piece, and agency is so often an important part of that. How much agency do I feel for my future? How optimistic am I for my future? Do I know what I want for my future? And so really trying to keep those three areas within our team's focus is really important. And then our work ahead, connected to that, and I'm going to turn it over to this crew and stop yapping. I apologize. Is our work ahead is just to continue to look at data and to analyze it. There's a human experience behind data points, and really thinking about engagement in these opportunities. Partnerships are key. Without so many of these partnerships, our students do not have the opportunities in so many of these different ways. And just as a quick side note, and we often talk about students when they have these opportunities, they are the steward of their own experience, and they're the steward of the experience that a sixth grader may want to have 4 years later with the same person. And so thinking about themselves not only in their own experience, but also in the shoes of a sixth grader who wants that same experience. And so they become then stewards not only of their own experience, but also, casting forward for those who will then come after them. We're always looking to seek and create new opportunities and pathways, and just revising our processes and procedures. What's working? What's not working? Is it clear? Is it not clear? And those they may seem like, well, duh, of course you should be doing that. And yes, that is the work that we're committed to. And there's lots of room for improvement in all of these areas, but that's our focus. And then we always want to support and retain our colleagues that are working with students and our community partners. So that's just a little bit. I apologize for yammering, but that's a little bit about kind of where we are currently, a little bit about the past couple years. And I'd love to turn it over to Anna and Cooper, Logan, and Diego, and then if y'all are okay with it, then we can kind of receive any curiosities that you may have after that. Is that cool? Okay. All right. So I think we're going to queue up Cooper, and then we go Anna, Diego, and Logan. Is that cool? All right. Welcome, Cooper Bernardini. What? What's that? I'll grab it. Okay, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Good. Okay. You want Anna to go first?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Okay, I'm Anna. I'm a senior at Montpelier. And in the past 4 years at Montpelier, I've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot of flexible pathways. So I've done 4 PLSs in technical theater because I'm one of the stage managers for the MHS's theater program. And starting last year, I started doing a PLS, which meant that I got credit for all the work that I was doing. This year I did a CBL at the Montpelier Performing Arts Hub in business and marketing and what that means for performing arts. I've done 2 PLSs in music theory through piano, and I have been the teacher assistant for Latin 1 for the past 2 years, which means I've basically I go to every class and I help teach the freshmen. And then I also took a PLS in Latin, which led me to take the national Latin exam last year, and I got to go deeper into that. And then this year I took a dual enrollment anatomy and physiology class. It was really helpful for me to be a part of, or be in these flexible pathways, because there was time built into my school day, like a block, where I could experience the flexible pathways and the different things that I was interested in a way that was broader than the classroom. Like my Latin class, I had taken Latin and I still take Latin in the classroom, but through my PLS, I was able to go further at a level that I wanted to go at and the pace that I wanted to go at. And me and my Latin teacher got to do that in the time that I had for that. It was also really helpful for me to get credit for something that I was already doing, especially my stage management, because I don't know if any of you know, but that takes a lot of time. Being a part of theater and holding that role is a lot of time and energy spent. And it was really helpful to get credit for that, and have that be seen as something that was valuable for credit. And I think that's a really big part of what makes flexible pathways so special, is that I was getting validation from the school that there is some merit to what I was doing. I was spending a lot of time helping the Latin 1 students. I would go to Solon blocks with them and help them anyways. And then getting to have credit that goes on my transcript for
that and that colleges would see that that's like a really important thing. Yeah. And it's also a block of time. Like when I did a CBL this year, there was a block in my schedule that then I had free where I could take that time to do my CBL, which is really important because when you're taking 7 other classes, you don't have very much time to do those other things. And so like getting that space and time for that is really important. Some skills and opportunities that I've been able to build up is like learning that it's really good and it's really important to be able to dig deeper into something that you're interested in. We at MHS, there's a wide variety of courses that you can take, but sometimes you need your like own time and space to dig into something at a level where maybe 15 other kids don't want to in the exact same way as you. And a big part of that is learning how to learn something, not sitting at a desk in a classroom with a teacher saying it to you. So like being put into a situation where you're learning and where you're like doing some action or something rather than just like experiencing it, you know? And I also learned about being an advocate for myself and being aware of what my needs were or what my interests were. Like if I thought something was cool or I wanted to spend more time doing it, I could. And I learned that there are ways for me to advocate for that and places and opportunities for me to do that. And also learning that I can find success through different avenues. Like if I'm interested in something, but I don't necessarily, there's like no stage management class at school, but like finding ways where people succeed in that in real life and like that there are opportunities outside of the courses that are in our course book, you know. Also doing flexible pathways that have spanned across a couple years. Specifically my junior and senior year, I've done the Latin 1 TAing and also my technical theater PLS. I've learned that like you can get really good at something that you do, and that's often when the semester changes or when the year changes, your course ends. And having something that spans across that time has been really helpful because I've been able to dig deeper into things and then operate at a higher level in those things. Like I've learned how professional stage managers work and learned how to use programs that they use and like that kind of stuff. And with Latin, I helped the Latin teacher build a new curriculum for the Latin 1 course with a new book. And so like this time that I've been given through my PLSs has allowed me to like operate at a level that I might not have been able to outside of that. I am a person who has often like succeeded in a traditional classroom setting. Like my brain works in that way, but it's really hard for me when I have to struggle to do something. And so that has been something that my flexible pathways have taught me how to do. I'm put in a situation where it's not immediately obvious how I should operate in a setting, and I have to learn how to struggle and how to deal with that. And that isn't something that I necessarily got a ton of experience with until I started like going out to my internship and experiencing that and working in settings where I'm like, I don't know, I don't immediately have the support that I need, which is a real thing that happens in life. Yeah. And I just think that for anyone at MHS who has interests that they spend a lot of time on anyways, or they want to get more into, it's really important that the school that they go to supports those things and like that creates time and space and merit for their interests. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Anna.
Hi, my name's Cooper Brunini. I'm in sophomore year at the moment. I'm attending the culinary arts program at CVCC currently. Uh, I think I'd probably start off with how school is going for me before I did my CVL. I did Feast, which they make food for Meals on Wheels, which if you guys don't know what Meals on Wheels is, they bring food to elderly folks who can't cook for themselves or go to the grocery store anymore because whatever various reasons they have. Uh, anyways, to start, uh, I barely ever came into school on time. My grades were horrible. I was failing classes left and right. And then I found out about Feast through a friend in a class and somehow got my way into there for the next year. And I do it every day for 2 hours from 9 to 11 o'clock. And then I'd come back and attend my last two blocks of the day. And through that, my grades went up a lot, surprisingly. And I've learned just how little I learned from sitting down and listening to a teacher talk all day long, and how much better I learned moving around, doing it every day. Like I would be prepping food for them every day to help them cook. I got a lot better at using a knife to cut stuff, measuring stuff. I've learned like equivalents to ounces and cups and all the fun stuff that comes with culinary. I've learned a lot more about cooking techniques through Feast. I learned a little bit of history. I learned a little bit of teamwork and leadership because we would have elderly come in to volunteer and help with us. I also ended up getting a job through it for Circus Mercus's summer camp for the summer. I was a prep cook slash line cook for them. Through meeting a chef that would come in on Thursdays every once in a while. And then through Feast, I learned a lot about myself, about how I learn. I discovered my career, at least I hope it is, of going into the culinary industry, which opened up the reality of actually going to college because I always thought my grades were way too bad. My attendance was horrible. I saw no reason to go. I had no clue what I wanted to do, why I do it, what I do after college. And Feast opened my eyes to exactly what I wanted to do. I ended up learning food safety. I got certified in ServSafe, which, if you don't know what that is, it's the National Food and Sanitation, I guess I'd say like health committee I want to go with. And then Matt actually pushed me towards the career center, seeing how much I liked doing Feast, which happily I got into the culinary arts and has 100% shown me everything I was beginning to think is true. I very much like culinary. My grades have skyrocketed now. I'm not failing a single class, I think, actually, at the moment. I get up and actually want to come to school. I am there every time, on time for once. And I think it's genuinely the happiest I've been for school so far. And it hasn't even felt like it's been half a school year. It's felt like probably 3 months to me. Like we were just discussing it a couple of weeks ago, how semester 2 was just about to start in Montpelier. And we were all surprised. We all thought it felt completely different from normal school and sitting in it. And I think that's just genuinely why CVLs are a great thing to do, or flexible pathways, because they open up someone's eyes to exactly what you would want in life, what your career could be like, so you experience it in high school. So, you'd actually like it in the first place. And it definitely opens your eyes to your future. And in my opinion, it made me a lot happier to come to school. Made me actually want to get up in the morning, get to school on time, and learn something instead of coming to school and sitting in class and practicing problems or writing an essay instead. I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Cooper.
Thank you for having me. I hope you all have a wonderful night.
Diego, you up next? Good to see you, my friend.
So, I'm Diego. I graduated last year from MHS, and I'm excited to talk about PLS and CVL. I think Anna really talked a lot about the points that I also experienced while doing this. So I think like when I was a freshman, I did fully virtual school, and that was because of COVID, and my parents decided that they didn't feel comfortable with me going into school in person. And I think that year was really hard for like many different reasons. And when I finally went to my sophomore year and I had meetings with Amanda, who's the counselor, she had always asked me like where my career was looking for and what I wanted to do if I had college lined up or what my thoughts were about going. And I kind of always didn't know what to tell her at all because I felt like I just had way too many interests and kind of my whole life, my understanding of like the progression of like being a young kid to an adult was very much like you have to stay in one specific area and that's how there's no other way to do it. So like in my head, I didn't even perceive a reality where that I was able to have an interest in all these different things because throughout pretty much my whole life, I just have a random interest. Like at one time when I was younger, it was like art, and I was like drawing endlessly all the time. And then it switches up 3 months later to like culinary and something completely random. And so as I was getting older, I still had that same part of my character. And I think there was a lot of pressure for me, especially when I graduated and leading up to it, because I think also for a lot of I still talk to people who are juniors today who are still super anxious and worried about after they graduate. And they just don't, they feel so boxed in, like they have to rush and make a decision. And a huge part of my PLS experiences was actually getting to talk to different people who were already in areas that I was interested in, how they were, how their life story to where they were at right now, how they actually arrived to that point. And what I noticed, because I talked to so many people and just even outside of the PLS programs, was that pretty much every adult told me that they're still trying to figure out like certain things and they're still bouncing around different things and how they also didn't feel like they went and did this thing and they went over here and studied this and then they failed at this one business and then they had the inspiration to travel here and then just very much non-linear. And so that was really beneficial for me. And so the CVLs and PLSs I did here, I had one in entrepreneurship and which was selling my great grandmother's tamales, which is a Mexican food. I did two history PLSs, one about the history of Cuba and the culture in Cuba and how Cuba had left impacts on more than just their own history, but the world. I did political rhetorical speaking, where I analyzed how political speakers used rhetorical language in different ways of in speeches and how they used rhetoric in order to influence people in a certain way. Where so I looked at Obama, I looked at dictators, I looked at Hitler's speeches, I looked at just how different politicians and people in history used rhetoric to influence people. I did my sophomore year, I was interested in personal training for fitness, and I interned Mackie Shushuk at Norwich University, and I got to see how she was training college students and some of her philosophy around nutrition and so on. And I was with Amanda Lucia Garces, who works at the government in I think it's the Human Justice Coalition. And I got to go to her around every week and see the work she's doing. And
I got to ask her questions and get to see how she was trying to help support people, not just who were part of BIPOC, but also LGBTQ community and multiple areas. And through her, I was able to present at the Roland conference to a group of teachers and young students about the power of stories and how stories really can impact everyone. And that was more specifically relating to people from different cultures. And I did that with someone else, and she taught about the Armenian genocide. And also with Amanda, I had worked on bullying and harassment in schools, and I was able to contribute there. And the reason why I was drawn to that was really because through my elementary school years and middle school, very much I was always bullied all the time. So I had a lot of like voice there where I could speak and kind of resonate more with the people being affected by that. And I also did a PLS with a musician from Colombia. His name was Daniel, and he taught me some very basic understanding of guitar, and he taught me a specific style from Andalusia, which has Spanish and Arabic influence. And so I got to learn a lot from him. I also did a lot of, like I already mentioned, talking with multiple people. I visited a Buddhist named Kenzin who lived in his own place and close to Montpelier, and I got to talk to him a lot about his own path and how he was, you know, he was really interesting to talk to. I spoke to 2 different life coaches about their work and how they were helping people. I also visited Ananda, who has Ananda Gardens, and I interviewed her about how she got her small farm up and a little bit more about health and nutrition. I visited it's not a mosque, but in Burlington, there's the Islamic Center where I was able to tour there, and I talked with, I'm not remembering his name, but I got to talk to him about Islam and his own path. And yeah, I also got to teach Cuban history to 3 different classes. And I also got to teach in English seminar. I got to teach about cultural songs and their significance in the modern day towards younger people. And yeah, that was, oh wait, one more that I did this was the last one I did with English and like writing. I wanted to write my own novel in the form of a memoir. And I did that through the PLS, and I really wanted to like compose that as a way to, because I was always liked to write, but I also did it because I wanted to understand my own childhood a lot better and understand kind of what influenced me growing up as a way to understand myself more and just to do that. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And yeah. So the skills that I really got from all of those was first of all was able to like have that old paradigm where I saw I needed to do one thing and I couldn't spread anywhere. That went away, and I was able to see like there's so much I can do, and it's okay for me to have and bounce around with all these different interests. And that really helped me. And on top of that, it really helped me to be able to kind of like what Anna was saying, things I was already interested in, I could get credit for it by the school, and then I could show others and teach others about why it was related, why it mattered, and how why it was important. Specifically going to when I did the tamales, which I think was probably it was one of the hardest things I had done. And I did that all because I wanted to feel what it was like to run my own business. And I spent my weekends, I spent at least 15 hours full Saturday and Sunday just dedicating towards trying to like fulfill all the orders I had for different teachers. And then outside of even teachers, there's people, friends, and people in the community who were putting in orders. And so it was really like, I had to like wear multiple hats. I had to learn how to like sort of market it, how to sell it, how to manage my time, how to get schoolwork done while also being able to run all of that. And at one point I was hearing stories from peers about, you know, they were working as cashiers and they were saying how they were taking home like $500, $400. And I was like, I'm not even like, I'm not even taking any of that for myself, and I'm putting so much more. They're working way less than me, and so there's a little bit of that, but like the amount of skills I got from doing that, I just completely. It was sometimes really stressful, but I just enjoyed it so much because I felt like I was learning in a way that I just didn't think I was going to be able to, and that specific opportunity was able to get me to do events outside of the school and just all the skills in communication and getting to meet different people, finding people who were my friends to hire them as employees and paying them and trying to get them to help me out. And I had a couple of close calls. Like I locked myself out of the car one night when it was raining after an event, and I had to break in the car with a stick and get myself out. I locked myself out of school one day with a burner on, and I had to figure that out really fast because it there's that. But all those really helped me, and yeah, I think really just the PLSs and CBLs were extremely important for other people and me because I really think that they give you the capacity to assume your own, like be your own teacher and student at the same time. And how that this is carried out after high school with all of the skills and stuff that I had did with all these PLSs and CBLs, I very much still guide myself the same way as if I was doing this here. So I'm doing the same thing where I'm getting to meet adults and different people and work in different places who just continue to add to my already what skills I have. And I think the transition from actually going in the school and being like an adult and actually like having, you know, having to guide myself because I don't have anyone who's telling me where to go or where to lead myself. A lot of those things that I did in school already had made that transition way more smoother. And because of that, I got to feel less anxiety about graduating and had more clarity, even though I wasn't completely sure about where things were going to go. And I think it's just really important for upcoming younger kids who also probably feel the same pressure about graduating to be able to know that they can find things that the things they really enjoy, they can find a place for it. And yeah, similar to what Anna said. And yeah, even I've told my brother too the same thing, that when you get to the high school, because he's nervous and he'll be going this year, I told him just, you know, do PLS and CBL, just do as many as you can and with things you're interested in, because I think that's where you're going to find it, is whatever interests you. You get to see how real world people are making that their life and how they're able to prosper off doing that. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Thanks, Diego.
Logan Kimball, finish us out. Notice Christina's here because Logan is Christina's son.
Oh,
Hello, my name is Logan Kimball. So I just want to start off with my definition of flexible pathways. So to me, flexible pathways is the idea that we kind of forge our own future as learners. We get to explore and kind of experience these new things that when you first get to school, you're not sure if you have the ability to do this. So I'm graduating this year, but my flexible pathways journey started years ago. I'd say it started in 7th grade. I learned as a child pretty well how to advocate for my own education. And so in 7th grade, I went to the small school of Twinfield. And there I was given the opportunity to attend Algebra 1 as a 7th grader. At that school, that was just the hallway next door. But so that went amazing. It was this opportunity to push my education past what the standard is. So then when I got to 8th grade, I had this drive for opportunities. I kind of wanted to push my learning as far as I could and explore the things I want to explore. And so I entered this program. It's called the Lottery, where I applied there and I ended up being able to go to Montpelier as a high schooler without paying tuition, even though I don't live in the town. So that was amazing. And I saw this school and I knew there's opportunities here that I wouldn't have if I stayed at this smaller school. So that was kind of where I really got into flexible pathways. And so my freshman year, I wanted a challenge. And so I talked to the flexible pathways department and I landed on an online course. And so as a freshman, I took AP microeconomics. It did go really well. It was a new environment. Online learning was something I had never done before, but it really taught me how to advocate for myself and keep myself accountable. Because in an online course, you don't have a teacher there telling you what to do, what assignments to do, like how to do it. It's very much what ability do you have to teach yourself and use the resources you have to learn this material. And so then my sophomore year, I kind of continued with this online learning thing. I signed up for psychology and then also a physics course. And then I also took a PLS. I was in the debate club my sophomore year, and I really wanted to learn how to be an effective arguer, how to talk in a way that kind of convinces people or proves a point to people. And so my PLS kind of went into that, like how to be an effective arguer, how to be concise in the information you're providing and use it in a way that supports whatever you're trying to say. My sophomore year, I think that was it for sophomore year. And then going into my junior year, I signed up for a CBL. So that is just community-based learning. And through that, I got connected to this local automotive shop called Utton's Automotive. It's right on River Street. A lot of you probably know it. And that internship lasted a few months. But from that internship, I also gained a job there. And I currently work there now. I'll have been there for a year by June or July. In my junior year, I also took AP psychology and then AP US government. So then last May, I also took 2 additional AP exams past what was offered at this school, which was just an amazing opportunity to boost my learning in a way that I didn't really have access to because those aren't courses that we offer here. I also took 2 dual enrollment courses. So I took physics and pre-calculus through the dual enrollment program. I took those at CCV. They were fully online, which meant it was, again, pretty self-directed. It was definitely testing, but it taught me really what college would look like and how I can keep myself accountable in a space like that. And then another part of my CBL that year was this program called Beta Labs, which was this amazing opportunity to go to Beta Technologies up in Williston, South Burlington, that area, and learn what it's like to be an engineer. We got to observe kind of what their space looks like what a maker space is, how engineering businesses can promote innovation and discovery with each other. And then we also, as a part of that, the group of kids that I was a part of, we learned how to design, how to 3D print, how to use laser technology. It was a really big jump into engineering. This is what a job could look like if I pursue this as a future, which was just so cool to see. And it really set it in my mind that this is what I want to do. I want to work on random designs and prototypes, and I kind of want to fail sometimes just so I can learn how to be successful and how to work with others. And then through that program, I also ended up presenting at the State House for Beta Labs just to talk about what I did there, what flexible pathways meant to me and the impact it had on me. And then this year, I am doing early college at Vermont Tech or Vermont State University. My courses are fully online just because I also work full-time. So I just do my courses kind of in my free time. It's a college level workload, but it's definitely a lot more I have a lot more space for me to work on it because it's just whenever I have the time. It's not like you're in class right now, you have to do this assignment right now. It's just very self-directed again. So yeah, I think flexible pathways has just really allowed me to push the boundaries of my education past the standard classroom. It's like definitely provided me with skills that I wouldn't have gained, like being self-directed, understanding how to keep yourself accountable and how to prepare your own future. I think that's a big part of what I've learned through flexible pathways. There's definitely been a really great support system through the program. I mean, Matt here has been just amazing. He is always there for you. I had the teacher before, Steph she really helped me out through that. It's really nice knowing that you have that support system there and that they want what's best for you. They want you to explore and learn what you like and how you like to learn. And I just think that was really cool.
And
yeah.
Logan, where will you be attending school next year?
Oh,
Just out of curiosity.
I will be attending Yale next year. So I think flexible pathways definitely helped a lot with that because it pushed my education far past the standard classroom. And I think that really helped me stand out as a learner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
Just want to appreciate Anna, Diego, Logan, and Cooper, for creating the time to share their experiences. And thank you for welcoming us into the space to share for the work that you're doing to support our community and integrate experiences of our students. So thank you. Certainly open for questions. I know we've got a long agenda and recognize and honor that. But I want to also create space for curiosity if you have questions.
I first want to just say thank you so much for sharing your rich experiences and also your vulnerabilities in your stories with us. I very much appreciate you all being here to share what flexible pathways means to you in all those ways. So I just want to start by saying thanks. I have a couple questions, but I wanted to first say thank you. Oh, no, go ahead, Amani.
Okay. I also wanted to say thank you to Matt. I also experiment with flexible pathways, and it is so helpful because you get to go way beyond what's here at MHS. And I think that as a senior, I hope that people continue to experiment with it and there are more opportunities because it is really eye-opening, and I think it's really helpful for anyone who's choosing to go to college because it really you to what outside of high school can look like. So thank you, Matt.
I'm curious to know, we heard Cooper's career ideas or aspirations. I'm curious to know if other folks have figured that out yet, or the answer does not have to be yes, but I'm curious. That's true. We do need you at the mic.
It's Logan again. I really want to go into aerospace engineering. At Yale, you start off undeclared, but eventually I should go into mechanical engineering because they don't have an aerospace program. But through that, I really just hope to pursue internships and stuff and get into that field as much as I can and get that exposure. So one day I can get a job in either a private sector like Blue Origin or SpaceX or even NASA or something like that. I think it's such an interesting field. So, yeah.
Cool.
I am not 100% sure yet or anything. I am going to VM next year. I am thinking, thank you. Yeah, I think.
That's a big deal.
Thank you. I have am now leaning towards more marketing and business type of thing, more like that. For a long time, I was like, I'm going to do something in science. And I thought that was true. And then I saw that it was okay. And I could to do other things that I thought was fun, Yeah. And I have gotten, I am doing a summer camp this summer. And last summer I was the stage manager at Lost Nation Theater. So I've gotten to be a part of professional productions and stuff like that already, which is cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit similar to Anna, where I don't have specific career that I'm going towards, but I do have like goals of things that I do know that for the future and that I sort of building up to. So for me, I think a huge part, like since I was a kid, I wanted to be like a dad. So there's like thinking about that. And I think I've been doing a lot of what really I think speaks to me a lot is agriculture. So I think there's a high chance that I'm probably going to go way more into agriculture. In Roxbury, there's a greenhouse, and I've been communing with the owner over there, and she's been really helpful. So she's probably going to want me to help a lot with her business that's going on in Roxbury. But yeah, I think I'm just still really just exploring different things I'm interested in and just not holding the expectation that I just need to hold myself down to one specific thing. And yeah.
Great.
I'm trying to
Thank you.
recruit Diego into education, but he hasn't caught on just yet.
My other question is for the things that are like the personal learning plans, and the maybe less like institutionally structured parts, how do students demonstrate their learning in order to have that translated to credit? That maybe is a question for Matt.
Yeah. In terms of the personalized learning plans?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are in a good space of transition to more formally implementing our personalized learning plans. They, personalized learning plans are in place, and students are experiencing their own personalized pathways. And as you've heard from different students, there is credit that is associated with those plans. And it's our work right now to more formally and intentionally put together kind of a package personalized learning plan where students can have a kind of a placeholder where they can share these experiences that they have, not just flexible pathways, but their holistic experiences, co-curricular, athletics, theater, academic, just a holistic experience. And so we had a team that visited St. Johnsbury and looked at their academy's kind of end of the semester exhibitions, and are continually meeting to think about our own design and what makes sense for our own community. And so while there's not like a PLP that like gives students credit, the work to more formalize that process and those platforms is well underway. And adjacent to that, and as an important through line, are really ensuring that we're offering students opportunities that are personalized, and where they are working with faculty. We are including caregivers and families and community members in those processes. So what's a long way to say is we're working toward a more formalized system within our PLPs.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks. And my last question is the cost of like online learning or the AP classes or things like that. Who is that in our budget, or are families expected to pay for those things?
Oh, no.
That's in our
Anything
budget.
through Matt's programming is through our budget.
Okay.
Mine this year through BYU. And I didn't have to pay for anything, and it was amazing because it's not a class that we have here.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, great.
I won't even try to say how impressed I am by all of you. I'm so stoked, honestly, especially because I have a kid here. And I just wondered, like, logistically, how do students carve out their schedule in a way that they can accommodate this? Like Cooper, I know like CVCC, like you got to travel, you have to travel there. You probably have to get yourself there. I'm not sure how that works. And then is that creating a tension with all of the required classes? Because we still have all the sort of required high school courses. So is it a challenge to fit this into the regular school day? Are people limited by transportation or access or time because they're competing for lots of different courses and things that they have to take? I'm just curious about like logistically how that works.
Yeah, that's Well, just to speak to kind of directly to Cooper, your experience, and do you want to speak directly to it, or? Okay. Yeah. So for students that are at the Career Center, so that their graduation requirements and kind of the alignment of different proficiency credits towards graduation are all kind of embedded within their program. And most programs have the same proficiency credits that are experienced and then transcripted. Some programs have like a health that might be additionally as part of their program. So students that are at the Career Center don't necessarily need to come back and take classes. Many do. We offer driver's education here. We've specifically put driver's education in a fourth block class because that is the time that's accessible for our students at the Career Center to take driver's education and not pay for it privately. So those types of logistics are really important. And we're thinking about those sorts of processes within scheduling so that students are afforded an opportunity to take classes that their peers are, especially classes like driver's education that have certainly a good deal of privilege that can be attached to it, and wanting to make sure that those opportunities are available for students. And so we've kind of, they used to be in the morning, now there's one in the morning and one in the afternoon. The school district also has invested in, there's 4 different vans, 3 of them are housed here on the campus. And as part of the Flexible Pathways faculty team, we will ensure that we get students to where they need to get to. So they don't need their own transportation. We certainly ask if they have that and if they're available to use a vehicle. And we have, different forms certainly that we ask students and caregivers to look at and sign off on if they are using their personal transportation and what the insurance pieces are. But we definitely, and again, clarity, support, agency. We want students to feel agency and not have those barriers. And so what is the support systems that are in place? Vehicles, and having the faculty and staff to have time to drive a student to their respective community location if it does require that sort of logistical resource. So that those are like investments that the district has made. And then scheduling it's a tricky thing, but it's something that is a real custom conversation with students and their school counselors around, this is what I really want. I think, you've heard that it can be done and it is done. But it does require students, and you heard self-advocacy, and you also heard, Diego, I appreciate you sharing that your school counselor, Amanda, was kind of pushing you to think about what it is that you want to do, and then to have the conversation, how can we make that happen so that you can take your classes here that you want to take, and then if you want to have experiences that are complementary or adjacent to or integrated, we will create a scheduling matrix within PowerSchool. We run iterations of different scheduling setups, trying to create the least number of scheduling conflicts so students can take their classes here and have opportunities to move off campus or to experience learning in a different environment.
Massive amount of logistical coordination, so it's appreciated.
Yeah.
Job it is to.
Could be.
That's a good point.
Totally.
That's a very good point.
Yes, that is true.
Any other comments or questions? Rhett, welcome.
Hello, Rhett.
All right. Well, thanks again. You all are awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
like
you.
really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us tonight. And again, thank you. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Next up, we've got the second quarter report from the Finance Committee and Christina. Yeah, we'll just go over the highlights for you.
The Finance Committee met this afternoon to hear the second quarter fiscal 25 budget report. And the takeaway is that everything's on track and no major surprises. Highlights on the revenue side include the fact that all insurance claims from the flooding last year have been received, except I guess a couple tiny, smaller, modest ones. I think was through FEMA. Yeah, we do have extra revenues coming in this year from students who are tuitioning. We budgeted 10,000 for that, but we are expecting to get 152,000 more than we had budgeted because we have 9 students tuitioning here. And we've received a substantial amount of ESSER 1 funds this year. Those are dollar for dollar reimbursements for some projects. On the expenditure side, we have 1 special ed position open. I think it was highlighted that our transportation expenditures look low, but they're on track because it's just as I understand, the factor of how we pay, and we have made 1 of 3 payments, so a third has been paid for. But so that's all on track. One thing that did strike us was that the capital fund, we've already spent on the roof all of the capital fund except for $4,000. So that's where that fund sits. And then Christina reminded us that we have one of our bonds that is scheduled to roll off in FY30. So nothing imminent on that front, but just a reminder that she put out there.
Roll off meaning we'll be finished with it?
We'll be finished paying. Yeah. So we had a good discussion about it. There was happy that everything seems to be going on track, and very grateful for the really strong stewardship of the district's fisc from Christina and Libby. So I would move approval. Is that the action? Approval of the second quarter fiscal 25 budget report.
Second. Great. Is there any discussion or questions from other board members? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Thanks, committee.
Can I ask a question about that? I'm sorry, I was slow to the mute button.
Oh, that's okay. Sure.
With the $152,000 of unexpected tuitioning, do those folks come in as freshmen, or is it across the grades, or is it only in high school? Is it also in the middle school? And does that allow us to have a sense of what it might look like in the future, or?
That's from private tuition. And so a kid can pay, or a parent rather, can pay private tuition to any one of our buildings. And so I believe we have tuition paying kids across the buildings. I think there's 1 in the elementary school. And then the rest are either in middle or high school. The majority are in high school. But it's hard to predict because the parent could decide not to pay it the next year, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I think we are budgeting more for next year, though, given the fact that I think 2 of those individuals are seniors, so we know would not be in. But I think, Christina, we're budgeting for more for 7 next year. So yeah, I think we are expecting to see some of that revenue continue.
Can they be, can we request that any of those families talk about how great an experience they're having and advertise?
Recruit.
I'm just going to play the video from the kids tonight.
Honestly, let's get that on the website.
I'm going to tell Logan to testify.
Exactly. It's true. All right, great. Thank you. We'll move on to the discussion of legislative priorities. So the idea here is whether or not we as a board want to take on any, not take on, but maybe advocate for a certain position around any of the issues that the legislature is facing having to do with education. So And of course, this doesn't have to be the end all be all conversation, but if there are ones that we would like to take a position on, then we can speak with one voice as a board on those issues. So we thought we'd start with just getting a list of what we know is out there. And then if board members want to say, oh yeah, I'd like to discuss taking a position on such and such issue, then we can have that discussion tonight. So I'll start with what I know, which is the reconfiguration of what education delivery looks like and governance, I guess, in the state. And what I'm talking about there is the governor's proposal for essentially consolidation of districts. And wrapped into that is also, I believe, class sizes. I don't know all of the details, although I've been trying to keep up with it. But that's one topic that we could take on. There's also separate but certainly related is the proposal to shift how education is funded in the state, which is another one where we could take a position. And then there's the issue of phone-free schools. So those are the three that I know of. Before we get into discussing any of those three, let's see if there's any others that board members or Libby that we should be thinking about. Jill?
I had the same as you, and then also there's not a bill or anything about changing how career and technical education is funded. I think it's sort of part of that larger education funding conversation,
Okay.
but there is like a separate specific topic about CTE because the way it's funded now, it pulls money from a school district. So it makes it sort of a competitive, for lack of a better word. So there's nothing really to react to too much at this point. There was a big report that was done a couple years ago, but there was testimony this week on it, so that was fresh in my mind.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
thanks.
Pretty big items.
That's all.
That maybe phone, I'll weigh in on that one.
Before we get to that, are there any other ones?
Oh,
They are
other ones.
big. Are there any others to add to the list? I know in the past, the legislature's certainly taken on PCBs, but I've heard that there's just not action on it this year, or should we consider?
The only
Yeah.
action I would think that they would take would be to lessen the testing requirements.
Oh, okay. All right. Jake is suggesting we move a discussion to phone-free schools.
I'm not so sure it's on the agenda, but so on phone free schools, personally, I support the phone free part of that bill. And I hope that the legislature acts on it now, so that it's in place for us for next year.
Jason, we've had a committee going, right, to study how far along is that committee in
They're
there?
very far along.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you can get updates if you go on his caregiver council agenda. That's where the most details are. But
Uh-huh.
Jason worked with a group of students. I saw Amani nodding her head when he said that. So worked with a group of students, and I know that he's surveyed students. He's talked to them a lot. He's surveyed parents. He's talked to lots of caregivers. His caregiver council has taken it on. He's talked to teachers quite a bit. He's done a beautiful process
Uh-huh.
here. And I believe, I don't want to talk for Jason, but I believe the direction that process is taking them is to become a phone-free school. And right now they're working to systematize what would that look like. There's some challenges that we want to make sure that we address, but he's done a really thoughtful process here. And I think because he's done that thoughtful process, that it will be more successful in the long run. I met with the middle school caregiver council today with Julie about this topic, and they quite rightly were talking about, well, we should be doing this as a district perspective, not just as a high school perspective. So I know Julie and Jason are going to be talking to find out what, and their caregiver councils are going to connect to, which is just so awesome of this, of that, structure that we've put in place the last couple of years. I think that they are looking for a board policy I do go back to saying wait to the legislature in order to make a policy first, because you don't want to have to make a policy and then remake a policy.
Yeah.
And if the process is well on its way, then we can do a procedure without a policy in place. Would be my perspective. I think parents would disagree with me on that though, or some parents would disagree with me on that. So just, that would be just my perspective, just based on legislative intent that I believe is coming down the pike.
And the conversation tonight is whether or not we would want to weigh in at the legislature to say, we think this should be statewide, or we think, yeah. Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, I think it should be. And I'd love to weigh in if that was something that the board generally agreed on. I don't know that I have enough to, get into the nitty gritty on it, but from a big picture directional, I think the sooner this school and schools across the state are phone free, I think the better. So strongly supportive.
I'm so on the timing didn't work for me, but I'm really mixed on it. As a senior, it doesn't really matter. So that's part of it, but also for me, I feel very strongly that when you're in a class, your phone should not be anywhere, like should not be a distraction, period. I think some teachers have a really good way of orchestrating the phone tree, which, let's be honest, like no one does that anymore. And it's unfortunate because that was a good policy that I think if enforced does the work and would make it so a phone-free school is not necessary. Personally, I think that the best way to have a partially phone-free school is for like students to understand that during class, your phone goes in the phone tree. You get at the end of every class, you have 5 minutes in the halls to look at it if you need to, and then you're off to your next class. I just think that as you progress in school, you have theoretically more free blocks where you can be in the library, where you can be somewhere else. And I don't know enough about what would happen as a senior with a phone-free school where it's like locked up or in the office or wherever it is, like how that works if you're coming and going. And I think that in an ideal world, students like want access to their phones for some part of the day, but also they should understand that they're at their best when they don't have it on them. And as someone who like has a smartwatch, has a MacBook, like I don't need my phone because I get notifications anyway. But like I also am engaged in my classes, and like when I don't have a class and I have certain work blocks, I use it that way. And I really wish that students could like really follow the like phone tree or the policy, because I think it's better for them. And I think that if they were following that, and then in the end, the legislature passed this, policy, and all people, like all students had to have their phone locked up, it wouldn't be such like a shock to them, and there'd be a more gradual like transition. I've seen the data, and I genuinely I agree with it. Like I think that it is better for mental health, but I also think that people do need a break sometimes from like social interaction or from like being in the class, and they like want that time to like, check their messages. And I think that it can be hard if you don't have like a group of friends who you see in the halls, or you don't have the same lunch, and like that's your way of communicating. And that can be really hard if you don't have a phone and you're just like, you're alone, and like your phone is your way to like look like you're doing something, or to like watch your show or whatever.
As a true introvert, I understand that.
And I think then the other piece that I really understand is we have enough students at this school who don't speak English very well. And whether or not they use their phone for translating, or they don't really have a big friend group because of a language barrier, that is really helpful for them. And I think that those students still are expected to like put their phone in the phone tree, but like they're able to translate, they're able to like, communicate with people who don't speak their language the same way. And, without a phone, that is a harder thing to do. So I'm mixed, but I also don't get a vote. So
no, thank you. We really appreciate hearing that.
In high school, bring their laptops to class and take notes on them.
It depends. Everyone gets a school issued Chromebook. But if you have your own computer, certain teachers allow that. It's really class by class.
Could you
But
just hop on Facebook and check out Facebook?
I could. I don't use Instagram or
Kids don't use Facebook anymore.
I was gonna say poetry, that was a different thing when I was in high
What's it
school.
called? Yeah, right, Snapchat.
Snap talk.
No.
With our school accounts, our internet use on the school accounts, if you're in your school Google account, stuff
Yeah,
is
on your Chrome-
restricted
Chromebook or
Yeah.
any device.
on any device on that account.
On the
If-
Wi-Fi even.
Yeah,
You're very limited on this MRPS Wi-Fi.
on your personal account, if you're using a different email, you can access other stuff. But most of the reason that people use other computers is that, as grateful as I am truly for being provided a computer, they're, if you have access to something else, you're probably gonna use something else. But yeah, people don't. I mean, there are exceptions, but people are pretty restricted from using other stuff on their computers.
We also have Go Guardian, so we know what you're using on your
Yeah, my
computers.
teachers have been known to watch what I'm doing on my computer.
Yeah, my seventh grader got busted that way. Joe?
I think that actually is one of the big points that I've learned from this group. So Liza and Adisa and Sarah spoke about this, and we got invited, and a bunch of us went to a presentation they had on the 10th about this particular sort of movement, for lack of a better word. And I hadn't really been paying a lot of attention to the topic, but it's pretty mind-blowing, actually, the impact it has. And selfishly, I went to work the next day and realized how distracting having my phone at work and having work communications happening in multiple places was for my concentration. The other panelists included like a local physician, a local therapist, a guidance counselor for MRPS, and a teacher at Harwood who now they have the phone-free rule. And it was pretty compelling. And I think one of the most important things that I took from it as well, from a school board, like what our role might be, is we are putting teachers in the position of having to police something. And so there are teachers and there are students and there are like strategies for the phone tree in a particular classroom, but it requires like 100% cooperation or it sort of starts to break down. And I still, I think about when there was the scare here last year or the year before, and our teachers had to go on lockdown. And those are things that our teachers are taking on behalf of protecting our children. And so now on top of it, the Harwood teacher was explaining he feels like he is literally less distracted as a teacher because he's not having to constantly monitor for people looking down, people looking at things. So plus, and I'm not a scientist, but the anxiety and mental health challenges that this presents, like, was very stark from the physician about literally like adolescent antidepressant needs going up. And I realized we came out of a pandemic as well. So I'm very, very convinced. And I think that the folks who hosted this conversation, I really kind of opened my eyes. And then lastly, we drove to Boston last week. And so we drove through New Hampshire and we drove into Massachusetts. And each time you cross into a state line, there's a sign that says handheld devices is a hands-free state. Handheld devices banned statewide. And that's because we figured out when driving, because we figured out pretty quickly that that was really bad. So I think it's just taken longer for us to see that we have to like claw this back a bit, but the end result will be we can concentrate. There's plenty of time outside of school to look on your phone and use your phone, but it's impacting mental health, it's impacting concentration. And I think it's just another thing that's sort of unfair for teachers to be expected to police all day, every day. The last thing I'll say is just there were a lot of parents of elementary school students there. So as Sarah pointed out earlier, like this can't be something that's just done at the high school. So you go to the middle school and you have one set of rules and then you come up to the high school and the rules are different. I really think it does have to be like district-wide, a reasonable policy that is shared and established and communicated so that parents aren't confused about what it is, students know, and teachers and administrators aren't trying to navigate parental wishes on an individual basis with trying to teach. So I was pretty convinced. Thank you.
Yeah, I was also begrudgingly convinced. I talked to a lot of people about this. I thought maybe the board would want to hear what the students had to say on this because I at least was super interested in what my friends thought about this. And we actually talk about this a lot, my friends and I. I just find like I adore science and data, and I just find the data really clear. Like any amount of like, oh, but like I want to be able to talk to my friends in class. I mean, like between classes, sorry, or like text my friends to like figure out who's driving us to practice. It's just to me like it doesn't outweigh how clear it is that this helps people. And I also just like I've been at the school for 3 years, and every year I've watched teachers have to kind of like bargain and fight with a little and like cajole their students into putting the phones into the phone tree or in their bags. And being an upperclassman classes, a lot of my teachers are like, oh, it's fine, you can just keep it in your bags, you know, you're like almost adults. And people sort of do that, but I just think that it's a lot more work to make for the teachers, and it's not productive for anybody. And so my one hang up on it is having gone through the lockdown as a freshman. Like as dark as I know it is to think about, like I would want to be able to talk to people in that situation, but I think that that's sort of a risk that you run with that because that is a really rare and improbable event. And on the day to day, this seems like everywhere it's been implemented, it has really helped people. So I support the board advocating for this legislature.
Oh, and that one point you just made there, Mary, because one thing we heard at that session that I thought was a compelling thing on that sort of dark risk kind of idea was the status quo presents a risk because, you know, our teachers are trained to be able to lead students in that. And, you know, I think, okay, as a parent, I'd want to be able to talk to my kids, but I see the sort of chaos I could inject in that if I'm telling my kids do this, do that, and their teacher's trying to.
Or just distracting them in the first place.
Right.
Anything that's
Right. But the teacher's trying to manage something. So like, I thought that was one of the most eye-opening points for me at that session was because I always, you know, I have that same thought, like, God, I want to be in touch with my kids if God forbid something were happening. But thinking that that could be the danger itself, that was one of the newest data points I got.
So the bill itself, so if we're talking about us as a board, I don't know, writing a letter, let's just say, that is in support of the bill itself covers both cell phones, phone-free schools, and I read it today, and I believe it instructs districts to have a policy on the books, I think. And it also addresses social media use by schools, and that part of the bill, I don't feel quite as in favor of, because as I read it, it would require that the district not allow students to form like the sports teams have Instagram accounts and Mask Theater has an Instagram account. These are just a couple of examples, and those seem like really healthy uses of social media. And I don't think social media is going away. It certainly evolves. Like Facebook is no longer obviously cool.
Not cool,
Not
Jake,
cool.
not cool.
Not cool. But if we can, it feels like we would be eliminating an opportunity for students to be engaged in social media in a healthy way, which feels like then it's like a limitation of preparing them for, you know, real life, basically. So
The same argument we made for a cell phone now.
Going
away either.
They're not going away. And I think I'm more compelled about being phone free during the school day because of I understand it to be a real distraction to learning. So I do wish that we could have more of a, like as Amani was saying, a little bit more of a balanced approach where students are learning how to use the phone in a way that doesn't distract them, but that's not our reality right now.
I just playing devil's advocate.
I understand. No, I appreciate it. And I've thought about that. But because it feels like the cell phones themselves are a distraction and a barrier to learning and a barrier to the social interactions that are happening in schools. One part that was super compelling to me was hearing about how cafeterias where there are not in phone-free schools are much more vibrant places than they used to be. I haven't set foot in MHS's cafeteria, so I don't know. Maybe it is actually already vibrant. But anyway, knowing
Pianos usually go in, it's kind of cool.
that's great. But just the fact that there's more like face-to-face and personal interactions happening in schools that are phone-free was another compelling piece to me. But if we were as a board going to take a position or advocate at the legislature, I'd like it to be a little bit more of a nuanced position that says we think that phone-free during the school day is very smart, and to the point of whether or not it should be school by school or policy wide, I can kind of see both directions. I definitely appreciate Jason's work here, getting the doing the research and having the conversations, because like you said, it's gonna have a real sticking effect. And I'm certain that there would be more investment in it because of that process that he went through. And that said, he didn't have a board policy telling him to do it. However, I can see there being more, not just cohesion for district wide, whereas if we didn't have a policy, then there would be like schools could handle it in their own ways, but also like a little bit more to back them up so that it wouldn't be to the whims of, the next principal at the high school saying, whatever, we don't need to have this procedure anymore. But instead there would be policy in place that would say, this is how we do it in our district. So I appreciate the bill backing up school boards to back up their principals. But I would want us to take a more nuanced approach to being in favor of the bill, because I personally don't feel as much in favor of the social media piece of the bill as the phone free part.
I mean, you could be like, personally, I am in favor of the phone part for sure, and social media part, not sure. That's where I stand. Like, I would trust the committees of the legislature to work through it and make a decision, but, I'm not so sure on the social media part yet.
Oh, sorry. I'll be really quick. I agree with the section A, which is about schools, school districts, and supervisory is prohibited from using social media as the direct way to contact students, right? So right now there's email, there's announcements, like that I get, but then it goes much broader to your point, right? There's like, I think Anna and some of the other kids do this on Instagram. They celebrate every time a student gets into and decides what school they're going to go to or what they're going to do after they graduate. Yeah. And then they just trickle through. It's like a very positive thing, but not having students have to have, for example, an Instagram account to hear if school's canceled or if they're that I totally get.
Yeah.
But this goes much further than that, to not permit students to use it for any of that stuff. Thanks, Steph.
And I don't think that's a possible thing,
Oh,
the
like the school-
Instagram page that's made for seniors, like, what would we do if they did that outside of like?
There's one for bad parking, right?
Ah.
My brother and I were just talking about
There used to be one for
This
fashion.
semester-
I got on it every once in a while. Hopefully for good things.
All right, Red's had his hand up.
I think a case can be made that there's no such thing as a healthy way to navigate social media, because it's designed to push people in specific directions that sort of reinforces partisanship and like sort of fishbowl thinking, as opposed to opposing viewpoints, that's healthy. But the design of social media is to not have opposing viewpoints. It's like going down a tunnel of the same viewpoint over and over again. I feel like this country would be in a different place if not for social media. So that's just a perspective. I don't know if I could probably find a lot of data to support that if one would ask for it, but I don't know how much time I have, but I think that there is a case to be made that there's no such thing as a healthy way to navigate social media.
I think that's fair. But I don't think it's going anywhere. And so, like, this is one of the things that my friends and I talked a lot about is like, is it in students' best interest to have phones in school so that we can learn how to use them in a healthy, balanced way? And it seems pretty clear that it goes best in schools when they're completely gone. So I can get behind that. But I think that it makes sense to not completely, like what Mia's saying, like, social media is a reality of our world, and just trying to completely ban any use of it seems a little counterproductive to me.
What is the board action beyond just having a conversation about, so it sounds like there's pretty strong agreement around the cell phone piece. And so are we going to be advocating as a board, or because we're not talking about a policy right now, we're just talking about legislative potential legislative advocacy.
Yep. The board action could be write a letter, show up and testify. But I think there's, and certainly any board member could go and testify and say, this is what I believe. But if you were going to say, I'm saying, we as a MRPS school board have a position, then we would obviously need to have that position first. So that, I guess that would be, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I mean, I feel like we're just sort of talking around in circles, but we don't actually have something that we're going to be doing necessarily, right? Like, does somebody want to, like, do we make a motion to support it, or, yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've had this conversation
Yeah.
in my tenure on the board, and so we're figuring this out as we go.
Yeah.
I don't know if we necessarily need a motion, but I do think that in order to, I appreciate you asking the question, because I think we should land the conversation somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think we could generally come to a consensus that we feel comfortable with. I'm just throwing this out here as an idea or hypothetical, that, a letter that is signed by the board chair to the legislature that states, we've had this conversation as a board, we would appreciate there being requirement from the state that we write a policy.
Will there be a proposal from the group?
That Jason is leading. He said that we were going to hear from them in April.
Okay.
It's on the agenda.
On the
Okay.
agenda in April, and I think the proposal we're going to hear is what are they thinking about doing here at MHS?
Right.
And maybe what they would say during that is, and we could really use a policy, or maybe they won't. I have no idea. I haven't seen what their presentation is, but
To follow up on your question, like, I think the concrete things are, this board sort of moves forward and decides if we should have a policy. Maybe we wait to hear what our community tells us they want and talk about that. And then we have a policy kind of hanging out, and then we can wait and see what happens in the legislature. And if that doesn't go anywhere, then we sort of bring it up in earnest, because we've had a group that's done the work and brought it to us.
yeah, which I think is separate from, should we
Mhm.
do something proactive to the legislature to say, we have a stance on this, which is the question we're answering tonight. I'm hearing from most board members that they would like to see us do that. Yeah.
So Mia, and I think also in hearing this, what you articulated, that there seems to be, I haven't heard disagreement around the cell phone piece, right? There's consensus around the cell phone piece, but that there's pieces of the legislation.
The
that-
actual bill, right?
Yeah, that the actual bill that could be potentially problematic. And so maybe that's the message that we are are,
Or we're just clear, we as a board don't have a position on the social media, or we say we have questions, we want to make sure you're, we maybe we are saying, have these be two different bills or something,
Yeah.
but yeah. But we certainly, if it was a letter or if it was a official testimony, it could be nuanced like that.
Yeah.
I'm very supportive of doing that. I'm supportive of the whole bills and social media stuff's all bad anyway. But I think actually, I think it would make sense to just keep it pretty high level. I feel like we wouldn't have a consensus view on the social media thing. So rather than kind of getting into, the nitty gritty legislating, I would be supportive of a letter coming from the chair reflecting the board's sense that the state should pass a law supporting phone-free schools or something like at a high level, because I don't think any of us knows where the conversation is going to go, and it can go in wacky directions and to a bill that none of us would support, at the end of the day. So I think just taking a position and then advocating that, I think will also help. Probably in the legislature, there's going to be a lot on the transformation and all that business. So
right.
Some of these other bills might not get unstuck. And so having a board voice just on the issue as opposed to a specific bill is probably, and just keep it high level, because I haven't heard anyone really not be in favor of that idea.
Yeah, my only worry about that is if we did that, do legislators equate that with, oh, okay, this board is in favor of H54?
Well, I think then we can.
Not if you don't say that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then they would ask, and then I
Okay.
think you can have Libby or Jim or someone go in and give the sort of blow by blow of the conversation, and
Got it.
But I think
Okay.
the more you get specific, the more it just gets people to pick at or disagree with.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I have a question and a comment. Jill, I appreciated the part of the bill that you read, because this has been like a big thing with Matt Link and the sports teams for the longest time. Like, regardless of how many emails he sends out about like the platform you have to use to communicate to your to members of your sports team cannot be a social media source. Like, it happens anyway. And that was a big problem for me as a freshman and sophomore, because it was Snapchat and I didn't have the app. I wasn't allowed to have social media. And I do have Snapchat now. I hate it. I don't like to use it. And I had to have it for group chats. And it's like, I think that with that bill being passed, like that part I definitely agree with. But also Libby has a good point. Like, if that is passed about social media, like who's going to delete or stop the like sports Instagrams, which are like really community based. And like, if people don't want their picture taken, like that's a form that you can sign, and you can't have your picture taken. And also it's just a really like community way to like be engaged with your sports team or with theater or whatever it is. And then, going back to the phone free schools thing, I think that the biggest problem with like coming into this is like the inconsistency across schools, across districts, and like across like classes, like even smaller in schools. Like, there are two teachers that I've really appreciated their approaches. Last year, it was a teacher who had like, by last name, you had a number and you put it in the phone tree. And like that teacher just had enough, like, I don't even know what like the vibe was, but like every student just did it. And like, because Go Guardian was also on for that teacher's class, like you kind of knew like you don't mess around in that class, and everyone was under that expectation. And then this, like, I've had this teacher for years, but like this teacher has a really great method where you're like, when the teacher starts class, every student greets that teacher with their phone, and they have a certain spot in the phone tree. And it's like, of course, some people don't like it, but everyone does it. And like, that makes it so it's essentially the teacher's like attendance, and also like a way for the teacher to say hi to everyone at the beginning of class. And I wish that there was more consistency, because like most of my teachers that teach only like seniors are like, guys, you're going off to college. Like, I expect that you can have the self-control to not use your phone during class. If I see it, I'll take it. Like, you're big kids now. Like, come on. So I think like overall, like the data is undeniable, and I get that. So I hope that like there can be a way for students to accept this and not like bring in like I'm sure that people will like try to bring in second phones or like a dummy device or whatever because there are kids who just are so addicted that they have to like have their phone, but like that isn't going to go well. Like there are always going to be like the places where you can't use it and you will be like caught or whatever. And I hope that when I'm not here, I'll hear from my brother that this, when the bill gets passed, because I assume it will, whether or not like we say to, we should do it or we shouldn't.
We're gonna put it over the edge.
I'm sure. I hope that it goes well and that the school district at least has a really good policy that is, goes forth in years coming. Because like my questions about, what happens if you aren't at school from 8 to 3? Like, do you get it when you leave? And when you come back, you have to put in the thing? Like, how does that work? Like, I don't have enough friends at Harwood to know what that's like. But I'd be interested to see what Jason's group gives us. And I've been reading a lot about Front Porch Forum about community members' views of this too. So I'm sure we'll get more of that.
On Scott and Jill's point on like what are we actually doing? The whole legislative stuff is for me like, minor. Whatever happens, happens. But I'm very much in support of I think what Jill just laid out, where we hear from the group in a couple months and we develop our own policy, which maybe is what they recommend, or maybe just lifting from Harwood, and it's in place for the next school year. And if the legislature says like, here's the policy, fine, then that's the policy. But I would like that to fall back on so that at the beginning of the school year, something's not in place and we're not deliberating through the next school year, trying to come up with something for the following school year.
Jason, we've got a procedure going for next school year. The plan is for next school year.
For the high school.
For the
At
high
the high
school.
school. I think
and
How's the
Julie,
procedure different than a policy?
the procedures thing we do, like in your policy, you will say the administration will create a procedure. So for a cell phone
To
free.
adhere to this policy.
Yeah. And so the procedure will, I think we're saying the same thing. The procedure will already be in place. Whatever the legislative branch does or a model VSBA policy won't have the procedure attached to it. Very few do, unless it's like connected to federal law, like HHB or Title IX. So this one will just have a statement. And like Montpelier-Roxbury believes in a phone-free environment, the administration will create a procedure. Like your policy will say basically that,
Is
right?
there like a timing on it?
Oh,
Like the administration will create a procedure starting at some date or?
The procedure we're planning, Jason's working on right now is for next school year.
Okay.
The policy probably wouldn't have a date in it because the policy you want to be evergreen. It would just be like, like for the next 10 years. And so maybe
Okay.
it would have a date or maybe it doesn't seem like the date. Yeah, I guess you could, right. It could be, right. Yeah.
Like procedures can be revised without going through the board, right? Because they're administrative pieces to it. But policies can't be revised without going, I can't just revise a policy.
So would the board have any like input on the procedure or is it just something that?
No, but what we would do is lay the boundary that is our schools are phone free from 8 to, from bell to bell.
Okay, yeah, I would like to do that.
That's what the policy would say. And then the administration is the one tasked with like figuring out how to make that happen. And okay, so thank you. And just to finish that thought, like, let's say, for example, we set that policy and then the administration is like, great, we're going to do phone trees, right? But then after assessing it and Libby goes, right, Libby does a policy monitoring report the following year. She's like, not in compliance. Then they have to figure out a new procedure that will meet the policy.
Okay.
Which is why the policy doesn't change. The policy sets the rule and then but the administration can just like change the procedures if it's not working to meet the policy without having to go through the board.
Okay, I think I follow how these things complement each other. And yeah, definitely for the start of the next school year.
Brett.
I just want to point out that we currently have a responsible computer internet information and communication technology policy, D3. And there's a lot of overlap. And I don't know if that, I'm just saying, I'm just pointing that out because there's an awful lot of overlap with, I think a lot of what we're saying and what's currently in this policy. It's not specific to phones. It's more to internet use and computers and, you know, applies critical thinking is, there's a lot of language in here that speaks to a lot of what we're talking about, and that could be on the policy committees. I don't know if we would want to make adjustments to that or if not. Just looking at it.
All right. So where we've landed here as far as the legislature goes is that the board is in favor of phone-free schools and the board is in favor of, say, a letter that is signed by the board chair on behalf of the board advocating for phone-free schools. Okay.
You need a motion? I'll make that motion.
Okay. Why not?
I thought you said you think
it's
so.
gonna hurt.
Yeah.
I'll second
Right,
it.
okay,
I'll
second it.
if you want.
Any more discussions?
That's why I did it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Well, that was one issue.
Can I, so the, for like an update, you know, the education reform stuff is complicated. The actual draft language just dropped yesterday. Committees are going to be working on it quite a bit, and the legislature, you know, is like forming their own vision. So it's very much an amorphous thing. I think it's already 8:45, and if we were having this conversation in a next meeting or the one after, it would be like on a very different framework potentially. So I would, you know, offer that we talk about it later.
Yeah, I think that's understandable. And like, I think we can put legislative activity on our agendas in future meetings. This doesn't have to be the only meeting that we talk about legislative activity. My question that I have for the board is whether or not we would want, I'm agreeing with you, Jake, but just for future thought, is whether or not we would want to take a high level position on reconfiguration or governance or, you know, like we could, one idea could be that we as a board say at a high level, we think the state legislature needs to put in much stronger structures and guidance for if and when districts merge, for example, so that it's not done quite as piecemeal as it was done in the past. But that could be, again, we don't have to have that conversation like that, but that would, I think, would be an example of high level ways that we would advocate without getting into the complexity and complications, because I am agreeing with you. It is very complicated and changing every week.
Well, at this point, right, we basically heard the governor's proposals, but haven't really seen what potential, or I guess maybe some language has dropped, right? So until we see what they're actually proposing, I don't feel like there's a lot we can like weigh in on.
Any other?
I think that's,
yeah.
I think too, Libby's testifying a fair amount as like a subject matter expert. And so I wouldn't want our board to like come out with something really strong and concrete that would put her in a weird position to like not feel like she could speak. I don't know if that would be the case, but
Yeah, on that note, like there's a huge amount of data gathering that has to happen, and that means talking to subject matter experts. So, you know, it's like very early and I don't know.
And I think that's a really good segue to one point that I wanted to make in this conversation, which is that I think there is a difference between advocating a position and providing expertise. And so I think if and when Libby gets requested for those things, appreciate you giving us those heads up. to know that they're happening and that is different than like what we're about to do, which is send a letter saying we're in favor of fund-free schools. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we close out this item on the agenda for tonight? Okay, then moving on to policy. Tim, am I teeing you up for this or Jill?
Yeah, so the policy committee was pretty busy. There's three specific pieces in the policy section. And we'll start with, Tim did some research discussing with the Vermont School Boards Association about doing a policy review. Sounds like a really good idea. I'll let Tim articulate that why, and it would be a relatively inexpensive way for the board to get a really good review of all of our policies. Do you want to expound on that?
The VSBA offers a service where they have model policies for all of our required and recommended policies. And they are pretty, they're on, I think, a 3-year regular schedule to make sure they're compliant with all laws and best practices and all that. And so they offer a service, it's $1,000 where they'll review all of our policies and they'll produce a memo basically comparing what we have in place to what they have in place. They're not providing legal advice, but they're sort of flagging those areas where we might want to consider an update. Having tried it for a couple of them, they're lengthy, it's complicated, it would take us a long time to do it. And if we tried to do it as non-experts in the field, I think the value's not there. So we had a nice digestible sort of guide that I think would be a work plan for a future policy committee to move through the policies and consider updates. I think it's a really good idea. They indicated that they could probably get us, they don't do it during the session because they're really busy there. But if we, if we're authorized to go forward with this, I think we can get on their dance card for the summer. It's kind of like they've done, I think they have legal resources that go into crafting their model policies. So they're not giving us legal advice on our policy specifically. They're going to be very careful not to do that. But by flagging where we're different from their policy, I think we can kind of then figure out, okay, well, we're not consistent with one that's been deemed to be legal, then we can say, is this not important or an important variance for our own specific needs? And if we have a legal question, we can obviously engage a lawyer, but I think it's more like a roadmap that says, at least this is where you're not consistent with the model, and doesn't mean we have to do anything. There could be a very good reason. It could be working for us, but at least it kind of raises the flag and gives us a kind of framework for how to go about reviewing our policies and making sure they're up to date.
Is this a ongoing, like $1,000 a year? It's
a one. I mean, we might do it in 5 years or something again.
But it's just a one-time review. They give us a report, then we can decide what to do with it.
Yeah, as I understand it, the 2 reports, one for our required policy and one for our recommended policy.
Yeah, I move that we approve the $1,000 for the VSBA policy review.
A second.
Any more discussion? I just wanted to add, I think, not to put you on the spot, but of course, it's a school board meeting, that we have funds that are allocated to the board, that we have, I don't want to say plenty, but we have money allocated to the board for this sort of thing. So it would not be taken out of the budget outside of school board line item.
It seems like money well spent.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next on the agenda is the reading of policy E1, but this is really here just to make sure it gets out in front of the community. And as we discussed at the last board meeting, we're going to be asking for feedback from the PI organization and the caregivers councils, and we don't have any of that feedback right now. So we can just, I think we can skip that for tonight, and it will come, this will be on future agendas.
Good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have the potential board action to remove policy CM 100 in district elementary student transfer. Jill?
Yeah, and that it's essentially obsolete. So we don't necessarily have to remove it, but it's basically when you have more than one school building that has the same grade. So now that Roxbury Village School is not in our district, we have one school for those grades. We don't have to have a policy for in-district elementary student transfer because there wouldn't be anywhere for them to transfer. So it's just an obsolete policy that we would remove.
Be clean up. Is there a motion to remove? A second? Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So then our last item on the agenda is policy monitoring. And the two policies we're monitoring today are C11, student freedom of expression in school-sponsored media, and C14, section 504 and ADA grievance protocol. Is there anyone who wants to move approval of those monitoring reports?
I move we approve the policy monitoring reports.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion, or does anybody want to, discuss either or both? Or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Does anyone need to discuss that?
I just want to
Okay.
thank Anna for all her board budget communication
yes.
stuff.
Did you watch the videos yet? James said he really liked, he watched the first one. He's like, oh, yeah, good. Videos.